Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome everyone in our today's highly important seminar on how to effectively respond to RAC and LGBTQ+ in school and our home. Our seminar will start from the recitation. One of our new generation youth, Azman Mahfouz, will do the recitation. Azman, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I will be reciting some verses from Surah Al-A'raf. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد جئناهم بكتاب فصلناه على علم هدى ورحمة لقوم يؤمنون هل ينظرون إلا تأويله يوم يأتي تأويله يقول الذين نسوه من قبل قد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق فهل لنا من شفعاء فيشفعوا لنا أو نرد فنعمل غير الذي كنا نعمل قد خسروا أنفسهم وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون إن ربكم الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في 6 أيام ثم استوى على العرش يغشي الليل النهار يطلبه حثيثا والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره ألا له الخلق والأمر تبارك الله رب العالمين ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفية إنه لا يحب المعتدين ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها وادعوه خوفا وطمعا إن رحمة الله قريب من المحسنين وهو الذي يرسل الرياح بشرا بين يدي رحمته حتى إذا أقلت سحابا ثقالا سقناه لبلد ميت فأنزلنا به الماء فأخرجنا به من كل الثمرات كذلك نخرج الموتى لعلكم تذكرون صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khairan, Azman, for your beautiful recitation from Kalam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best community ever raised for humanity. You encourage good, forbid evil, and believe in Allah. Surah Ali Imran 110. As a Muslim, we follow the Quranic instruction according to the ayah. It is our duty to encourage people to do good deeds and forbid them from evil deeds. MCA as a community organization is trying to build strong Muslim families that are equipped to meet the contemporary challenges like RAC, LGBTQ+, hypersexualization through the provision of education, support and training. In today's rapidly changing world, it is crucial for Muslim parents and educators to be well informed and prepared to address topics related to relationships and sex education, REC, and LGBTQ plus matters that are increasingly become a part of a school curricula. The aim of this seminar is to provide practical guidance and strategies on how to effectively respond to these subjects in a manner that aligns with our Islamic values and principles. Hopefully, end of this seminar, we can support communities and preserve the identity of our children, the next generation of our community. Parents will be more confident in talking to their children about sex, relationship, and LGBTQ+. Before I go to our keynote speaker, may I can request our Central President, Barrister Hamid Hussain Azad, to present his introductory speech on the topic of today's seminar. Barrister Hamid Hussain Azad, please.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد
Walaikum
لله
assalam wa
الحمد
rahmatullahi wa
لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear Chair, keynote speaker, and brothers and sisters who are attending this seminar from all over the country. First of all thanks and praise are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom we pay thanks, seek for help, and invoke for forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils within ourselves and from the evils around us which affect our daily lives. He who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides will never be misled, and he who he misguided will never find one to guide him. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the right guidance, and I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and messenger, and also the absolute role model for us. My brothers and sisters, in a crucial time, MCA has decided to organize this seminar. Why this seminar? As we know, due to widely publicized changes in the United Kingdom's education policy, relationship and sex education will be taking a new shape and form in our education system and classrooms across the country. And within some pockets of the Muslim community, the debates concerning this change in policy have been overblown and hyperbolic, and this has created a moral panic and social media frenzy in some concerns of Muslim community. As a balanced ummah, our reaction and our action must be proactive, productive, and in all sense balanced. Knee-jerk reactions seriously threaten our ability as a community to take stock of and fully understand both the root and impact of these government measures. It jeopardizes our chances of taking productive steps forward when it comes to our children's academic and moral education. It also stymies attempts to devise a coherent and wider community stance on a subject as integral to modern day identity as RSC. As a Muslim community, and especially as a British Muslim community, we have come long way in terms of religious literacy, social and legal standing, and political representation as well. We want to continue in a trajectory that safeguards our position in British society as British Muslims with a consensus based on true evidence from the Quran and Sunnah. Therefore, while we are concerned about our children's morality, our children's harmonious development, our children's balanced upbringing, our children's iman and aqidah, at the same time, we have to maintain our stance
Leave that one.
as a balanced ummah, inshallah. So this is why, while government have taken a policy, we must understand the impact of this policy. We must understand the length of the impact of this policy, and we must know how to tackle any sorts of harm in a very productive, systematic, and strategic way so that it does not create further problem. So therefore, in today's rapidly changing world, it is crucial for Muslim parents and educators to be well informed and prepared to address topics related to relationships and sex education and LGBTQ. That matters are increasingly become a part of school curriculum. This is why we thought that it is time now as a responsible community organization, we must inform number one, our big manpower about this policy and how to tackle any harms from this policy, how to safeguard our children, and at the same time, how to demonstrate the balanced approach of Islam in tackling this big challenge. Today, we are having this seminar, inshallah. The main objective of this seminar in understanding the Islamic perspective, gain insight on how to approach RSE and LGBTQ plus topic from an Islamic viewpoint while living in the Western context. Number two, empowering parents and educators that learning effective communication techniques and educational strategies to confidently address this subject with children and students in the UK. Many of our parents find this very challenging when children ask very odd questions about the topic. We want to give the know-how how to address the issues when our children bring to us, and I hope this seminar will help this. And number three is ensuring the community support that build a supportive network with other Muslim parents and educators facing similar challenges for fostering a sense of unity and collective responsibility. And objective number four is navigating legal and educational framework. Understand the legal obligations and rights within the school system to better advocate for our children's education. You may ask why MCA is taking this initiative? Because MCA is a broad-based dawah and community organization. As my brother Nahid mentioned in the beginning, in referring to the Quran, the kuntum khaira ummah ukhrijat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar. We strongly feel that as a community organization, as a dawah organization, we have responsibility to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. We have responsibility to safeguard our children, our community for any sorts of evil thoughts and evil mechanism. And we have the responsibility at the same time to make sure that our children, our community will benefit from Islamic teachings and learnings in tackling any sort of challenge. Our very learned educator, Ustad, Brother Yusuf Patel. I think there is no one better than Brother Yusuf to talk about this topic, experience and knowledge about this subject, inshallah. I hope he will take us through so that we understand the issues and at the same time we understand how to tackle these issues in a productive and in a dynamic way, inshallah. I welcome Brother Yusuf Patel, and at the same time, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all brothers and sisters who have taken time out to attend this very important seminar. I wish all the best of this seminar, and I would urge all the participants to attend attentively, proactively, take notes, and please ask questions if you have any questions to clarify the issues, so that end of this seminar, inshallah, we will go with confidence, with knowledge, and with ability to tackle any challenges related to this issue, inshallah. With this, once again, I'd like to say thank you to all of you, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Barrister Hamid Hussain Azad, for your nice introductory speech. Lot of several myths around RAC, relationship and sex education in English schools, that are preventing our parents from taking effective action against inappropriate teaching. Teachers are imposing their personal sexual views on our children, and our children are growing up confused and without guidance to respond. Lots of schools are teaching more explicit resources and promoting LGBTQ plus identities and gender ideology. Most Muslim parents don't know what is taught, how it is taught, or how to approach a school to raise concern. Most Muslim parents don't know how to respond to the challenge of living in a hypersexual society or the LGBTQ plus challenge. Inshallah, today's seminar will empower us to support parents in our community. We are honored to have Ustad Yusuf Patel today as our keynote speaker for this seminar. Ustad Yusuf Patel is a renowned scholar and community leader who has decided his effort to addressing contemporary issues. Yusuf Patel is also the founder of and managing director of Muslim Family Initiative. Now may I can request Ustad to present his keynote speech on today's topic, how to effectively respond to RAC and LGBTQ plus in school and home. Ustad Yusuf Patel.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي عمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And welcome to today's session, inshallah. So what we're going to do is, I think because we're online, because we're on Teams, I thought it'd be useful for us to do a quiz at the beginning. And before we do that quiz, I just wanted to get a few, just give you a bit of a like a introduction into what we're going to talk about today. And as many of the speakers so far have talked about, that our children are living in a society, in a world really, where a lot of the values and influences around our children are affecting them to one degree or another. And either we can accept that, which as Muslims we cannot, or we do something about it. And that today is the do something about it. And we're going to focus on two aspects of the work, the two elements of the work that we can have most impact in. So our children are affected in schools where they spend a lot of their day, but also they are affected in the home with social media and our children's friends and all sorts of other influences around our children. So we've got to focus on what we can do in those two areas, in schools and in the home. That's why we're focusing upon these two areas. Now, firstly, I want to focus on schools and then focus on the home. We're going to talk about RSE in schools, what you can do as parents in schools in England, especially. If anybody is on the call from Wales and Scotland, we can also talk about that. But predominantly, we're talking about the rules in England, which is separate. The laws are separate and different to Wales and Scotland. Firstly, we're going to do a quiz, yeah, and the quiz is on Menti, yeah. So all I want you to do is click on this link, and it will make it more interactive. Yeah, it will mean that we can have a proper discussion about these things rather than me speaking to you for the next 2 hours, which is quite boring. I want us to be much more interactive, for us to actually look at RSE in schools in a much more detailed way. Click on that link to Menti. You can see as we go along how people are responding to the answers. Yeah, so I'm going to share this page. So while I'm doing this, just please get on to that link, because you'll be asked to answer 10 questions around RSE in schools, and it's very important that that you are following as we go through, inshallah. So let me just open this page.
True or false? Yeah, okay. 10 RSE mates.
Yeah, you can see it now, Ustad.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we're going to go through each question one by one. Okay, so the first question, and I want everybody to take part in this, yeah? So you've got maybe about 10-15 seconds for each question. Primary schools must teach sex education topics. So at the moment, at 25%, 40% say it's true, 60% say it's false. Another 5 seconds, I'll allow you a little bit more time to answer. It's half, 50% now. I'll let just a few more seconds while people answer this question. And this is really a very important question. So at the moment, only 9 people have answered. So maybe I think there's still a lot more people. If you haven't, please click on the link, yeah, and click true or false, yeah. So please click. So at the moment, only 15 people have responded. I'm sure there's more than 15 people on this call. So please just, I'll give you another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the correct answer is false. And this is really important to understand. This is really important that, you know, a lot of parents think that primary schools must teach sex education topics. And that's not the case. Yeah. So although 64% of you said it's false, 36% of you said it's true. And lots of parents still believe that. Primary schools don't have to teach about sex education. Now, the government, Department of Education, has recommended that schools teach sex education in either year 5 or year 6. But a school can decide not to teach it at all. Yeah, a school can decide not to teach it at all. And so when we approach schools, we should ask the school, are you teaching sex education in the school? That's a key question we must ask our schools in England. And so if they are, then we need to know when they're teaching it. Yeah, because when they're teaching it is important for us to know, because of the next question that I'm going to cover. Yeah, so the next question is, the right to withdraw from sex education classes no longer exists. Is that true or false? Yeah, please click on the answer. So we said that in primary schools don't have to teach about sex education. But the next question now is, the right to withdraw from sex education classes no longer exists. Is that true or is that false? I'll give you another 10 seconds. We're still getting answers coming in. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's look at the correct answer. The correct answer is false. Yeah, it does exist. You have the right to withdraw. In a primary school, you have the right to withdraw from sex education classes. So when you go to the school and ask, are you teaching sex education classes to my child and to all children at this school? And then the next question is, okay, how do I withdraw? Now, the RSE policy of a school will explain how you can withdraw. It will say either you write a letter to the head teacher, or it will say you have to write a letter and then attend a meeting with the head teacher. And at that meeting, the head teacher might ask you, look, if your child is withdrawn, they'll be the only child withdrawn in the class. That may be harmful to your child. They may say things like, look, if your child doesn't attend these classes, he may hear things from other children in the class later on, and therefore there's no point in withdrawing. Or they may give other reasons that, look, children need to know these things, it's really important. And I think it's, if you are convinced that you don't want your children to go to sex education classes, you should say to the school, look, I take responsibility for doing this, for teaching this to my own child. Yeah. So let me know what you're going to teach to these children in my child's class, and then I will talk to them based upon our own values. Yeah. And I think it's really important that we get more parents to withdraw. Because what will happen in the future is, if not enough parents are withdrawing, they'll say, look, there's only a few people that are withdrawing across the country. What's the point? Let's just take away the right to withdraw. In Wales, they took away the right to withdraw from sex education classes and from all classes around these subjects in Wales. So that it could happen here as well. Question number 3. So click true or false. Primary schools don't have to teach about same-sex family structures. So some schools say this, some children have 2 mums and 2 dads. Isn't it good to have 2 mums and 2 dads? Is that required for primary schools to teach? Is it a requirement? So click true or false. If you think it's that schools have to teach about same-sex families, then that's true. If you think they don't, then click false. I'll give you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the answer to this question is it's true. Yeah, primary schools don't have to teach about same-sex family structures. Yeah, it's not a requirement. Now, when the problem is there's a guidance that the Department of Education wrote in 2019, a year before this new subject became statutory, became a requirement in schools in 2020. Now, this guidance is very unclear, and so it gives the impression that schools have to talk about different types of families. Some children have a mum and a dad, some children have just a mum or a dad, single parent, some children are raised by grandparents, and some children have 2 mums and 2 dads. Now, we asked for lots of clarification from the government around this, and only in the last couple of years did the government say, yes, schools have to teach about same-sex families by the end of secondary school, but they don't have to teach it in primary school if they don't want to. And even then, lots of schools are saying, oh, we have to teach it, it's a requirement, even though the government clarified it. There's a new guidance that's come out, but that hasn't been fully implemented yet, because there was a consultation about it. But this new guidance, which is still in draft form, it doesn't apply to schools yet, but it does say in a very clear way that primary schools are not required to talk about same-sex families, and it recommends that they don't talk about it in primary schools as well. And so we're waiting to see what the new government does with this draft guidance, when it may be another 3, 4, 5 or 6 months before we even know that. But the point is, we can still argue with schools that, yes, you don't have to talk about same-sex families. It's not a requirement in primary schools. Okay, so the next question number 4. Schools are under no obligation to show you learning materials. Is that true or false? If you think that schools don't have to show you the learning materials, then you think that's true, then click true. If you think they do have to show you the learning materials, then click false. Yeah. Do they have to show you the learning material? Do they have to show you the all the resources, all the worksheets, all the videos, everything that they're teaching? Do they have to show you this in schools? Yeah. And because this is important, because lots of schools were refusing to show parents the learning materials. They're saying, look, we can't show you these because we bought this from this company, and the company has told us we can't share this with you. Yeah. And so what is the answer? I'll give you another 10 seconds. 10.
Ustad, sorry,
Yeah.
Ustad. Ustad, a lot of our people are not used to use this type of a Menti. It will be helpful for us if you give a small tip how to use this one. Then we'll get more participation in the answer.
It's just clicking on the link in the chat box. There's a link. You click on that, it'll open up a screen, and then you just every time it comes to a new question, you just click true or false. It's very, very easy to use. It's
Okay.
Yeah, so just if you haven't joined, just join that. Just click on the link in the chat box. If there's any new people, Brother Naeed, then if you can copy that link again so people can see it. Just click on that link. If you don't want to click on that link, you just go to menti.com, and then when it asks you for the code, you type in this code up there. But the link is the easiest way to join, inshallah. So please do join that. Jazakallah. So school, okay, so let's answer this question now, because this is really important. This is one of the most important things that we need to understand. It's false. You know, the government, the previous government, the Secretary of State of Education from the previous government wrote to schools 2 times last year, reminding schools that they have to show parents all the materials. Some schools was either showing parents just a few materials here and there, or they were saying we can't show you the materials. But now the government has said that you have to show parents the materials. They have a legal right to be shown the materials. And that means that either you share them on a portal, if there's a school portal, or then you share them on there. Or if you have a meeting, you get parents to view them at the meeting. Or if a parent can't even attend that meeting, you have to give parents copies of that. Now, they say that if a school is worried that parents will share this widely, they can get the parent to sign a confidentiality agreement to say they will not share this with other people. But schools have to show parents all the materials. And so we should go to our children's school and ask, I want to see all the materials that you're teaching as part of relationship and sex education in my primary school or in my child's secondary school. And that doesn't, so if your child is in year 4 in a primary school, then you should be able to see all the materials from year 1 to year 6. They can't just show you the year 6 the year 4 materials and 5. They have to show you all the materials. And that means you might need to go into the school, or you have to make an arrangement to view the materials in one way or another. But by looking at the materials, you can start to engage in a conversation with school about your feedback on those materials. If there's things which are inappropriate for children, you should make that clear. If there's things that you think are being taught too early, you should make that clear. And we're going to talk about this in a later question, but it just enables you to start that conversation with the school. So number 5, schools are free to adapt materials. Is it that the government has just provided materials to schools and they have to use it? Or is it that schools are free to adapt, to change the materials? So if a parent says, look, I don't like this, then the school that says, no, we have to teach this. Or they can say, we'll change them. We'll change some of the materials. Is a school allowed to adapt materials? True or false? So this is about 50-50. We're on 50-50 now. So let's do 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think with this one, not many people answer this question. So I think what you should do, you should answer every question. Just guess if you want, because this helps us to understand what parents are thinking about this. Okay, so let's look at the answer. At the moment, 60% say it's true and 40% say it's false. And the answer is true. You know, the materials that a school uses isn't set by the government. The government doesn't say, look, this is the resource you have to use, but rather what it says is that schools are free to use whichever materials, but they have to work with parents in that process. The materials have to be age appropriate, and there has to be other criteria which we're going to talk about a little later. But if you say I want to look at the materials and the school provides you them, and you walk into the school, you look at the materials and you say this worksheet is being taught in year 1 and I think it's inappropriate for that age group. Now the school can say, okay, let's consider that. And if other parents also raise that concern, the school can consider teaching that worksheet either in a later year group or not at all. So schools can adapt materials they use. It's really important. And this is linked to the next question. Schools have no responsibility to consider my child's religious background. So your child is a Muslim. Does the school have to take that into account in any way when they're deciding on how to teach RSE, the materials they're using? Do they have to consider your child's religious background? So if you say schools have no responsibility to consider my child's religious background, yeah, you click true. And if you think that they have a responsibility to consider your child's religious background, click false. Give it 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your final opportunity. Okay, so 62% say the school has to consider your child's legal religious background, and 39%, 61% say, 63% now say you have to, and 37% say you don't. So let's look at the answer. It's false. So that means that you should be able to ask your children's school, how have you taken into account the religious background of my child when you're teaching RSE? And the school should be able to provide an answer to this. Now, most of the time, schools don't have an answer to this. They say, oh, why should we consider your child's religious background? They don't even know they have to. There's lots of schools which have 90, 95% Muslim children. And when you ask them, how have you taken into account the religious background of Muslim children at that school? They'll say, why should we? Yeah, we're a secular school, they say, which doesn't exist anyway. But the reality is the guidance says schools have to take into account the religious background of your children, yeah, when teaching this subject. That doesn't mean that it has to be only for schools with 95% Muslim children. Even if it has schools with 2%, 1%, yeah, it doesn't matter how many percent of children it has to take into account the religious background of your children when they are teaching the subject. The next question, let's see how you get on with this one. Now, this is really important. So schools do not have to consult parents on what they teach in RSE classes. Is that true or false? Schools don't have to consult parents in what they teach. They can just decide on what to teach. Parents don't matter in this, in terms of to be asked for their views. Is that true or is that false? Okay, I'll give you another 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is false. Yeah, they do. Schools have to consult parents on what they teach in RSE classes. Yeah, they have to consult you. Now, what does that mean? Yeah, that means that they have to ask for your views. The most important point at which to have to ask for your views, that when RSE was made statutory and it started to be implemented in 2020, 2021, they had consultation meetings in different schools. Lots of schools didn't have them at all, but some schools did. Now, a lot of the consultation meetings happened during lockdown, and we did a research on this and how many parents were invited. Majority of parents were never invited to a consultation meeting, and those parents who were invited to a consultation meeting, they were not really consultation meetings. They were just, this is what we intend to do, and parents did not even have the opportunity to feedback, to raise concerns, to ask questions, to offer their opinions. Consultation means that you create a platform where parents are asked for their views about what a school is planning to do, and then some of those views are then taken into account when making decisions. But the problem is that they haven't been doing this. That's one part of consultation. The other part of consultation, which is more ongoing now, is that whenever a school, because every school has an RSE policy, we talked about this before. Yeah, you should go and ask for a copy of the RSE policy. It should be on the website of your child's school. Look under policies, and there'll be an RSE policy. Yeah, it's either called Relationship Education Policy, RSE policy, or it's part of the PSHE policy. So you go and look at that, and that should explain how they teach a subject. The problem is that most RSE policies don't explain much about what is being taught at the school. But what schools have to do is every time the RSE policy is reviewed, Yeah, it could be every year, every 2 years, or every 3 years, and that should be explained on the front page of the policy, how when it's next going to be reviewed. Yeah, every time the policy is reviewed, every time it's updated, they have to consult with parents. But most schools don't do that. Most schools, the policy goes to the governing body, and they review it, and then they stamp it. Okay, this is fine, and it goes through. We should be asking schools, look, we should say, in 6 months' time, you are going to be reviewing your policy. I would like to be a part of that process. Now, why is that important? It's important because we need to get the RSE policies to be clearer and to have more details about different issues. Like, it has to have things like what a school is teaching, yeah, when they're teaching different aspects of RSE at the school. It should talk about how parents, which aspects do parents have the right to withdraw from. It should explain if a teacher is asked questions that go beyond what should be taught in that year group, or that's in primary school, for example, how should schools answer? How should teachers answer? And it should say, for example, that teachers should not answer questions in front of the whole class. That teachers should take that individual question after class with that student, involving parents, or there should be some details about that. It should say things like teachers should not be pushing their personal views on children around relationships. Rather, they should be teaching the factual reality and the law. Yeah. So schools should not be saying things like, "Isn't it good to be gay? Wouldn't you like to have 2 mums and 2 dads?" Yeah. It's great. Families, 2 mums and 2 dads are the best families in the world. These are value statements. These are opinions. This is not facts. So schools should not be pushing, teachers should not be pushing their opinions. But what we're saying here is that consultation when the RSE policy is being reviewed is very important, because you can look at the problems of the RSE policy and you can then say, look, this needs to be changed. I'm going to talk about this at the end, but I wrote a report recently, which I've sent to all MPs in Parliament just this week. And it has, it looks at 400 policies across England, across 34 cities across the country, including different boroughs in London, or all the major cities in England. And it goes through each policy, looks at what are the strengths of those policies and what are the weaknesses of those policies. And this will also give you an idea of the main problems with policies, and then you can use that to have an engagement with the school. But don't wait until the RSE policy is just about to be reviewed. Use that as a process by which you can influence how RSE is being taught. Yeah. And so when things are in the RSE policy, schools have to implement that. If it's not in the RSE policy, it doesn't have to be implemented. The RSE policy is an official document that has to be followed by all teachers. So you can get changes to RSE policy through that. Okay, number 8. Parents of secondary school children cannot withdraw from sex education classes. Is that true or false? So we said in primary schools, you can withdraw, but in secondary schools, can you still withdraw? Or is there no right to withdraw in secondary schools? Click true if you think parents in secondary schools still have the right to withdraw, and click false if you think they don't have the right to withdraw. So can you withdraw your children from sex education classes in secondary schools? I'll give you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 67% say it's false, and 33% say it's true. This is slightly changing because people are still voting. That's fine. And the answer is false. Yeah, you can withdraw from sex education classes in secondary schools. You are able to withdraw from sex education classes in secondary schools. Yeah, and this is really important. Just like lots of parents don't know you can withdraw from sex education classes in primary schools, in secondary schools, RSE, the whole thing is statutory. Relationships and sex education is statutory. But from the sex education part of RSE, you can withdraw. And you can withdraw your child up to the age of 15. Yeah. So when your child turns 15, they then have the choice and right to decide whether they remain withdrawn or whether they opt in to RSE. So up to the age of 15, you have the right to withdraw your children from sex education classes in secondary schools. But after the age of 15, your child will be able to decide, has the right to decide. You no longer have the right. The right transfers to your child at 15. And lots of parents don't know this. When I speak to parents and I say, you know, you can withdraw your children from sex education classes in secondary schools, they say, we didn't know this. And in secondary schools, they teach about sexual relationships. Sometimes they use inappropriate videos related to men and women having sexual relationships. It's really important that we protect our children from this, and we take responsibility to teach our children this ourselves. We've got 2 more questions now, and then we're going to explain a few things. Parents can make schools change how and when RSE is taught. So the 2 areas that parents can change is how, yeah, which is the materials that school uses, and when, which year groups a school decides to teach this subject or teach the topics. Can parents make schools change how and when RSE is taught? Can they say, you have to, if a parent says, you have to teach this in year 1, or you have to teach this in year 2, or you have to use this material, do we have the power to force a school to change the way it teaches RSE? Is that true or false? If you think that we can force a school to change how they teach RSE, yeah, then click that true. If you think it's false, you can't, then click false. Okay, I will show you the answer. It's false. Yeah, we can't make a school change. Yeah, we can't say to a school, you have to teach this in year 3 or year 4, or you have to use these materials. But what we can do is we can influence the way a school teaches it. And schools should be making some changes based upon our views. Now, the government has said parents don't have a veto, which means parents cannot say to a school, you have to do this, and a school has to follow. But if there are enough parents in a school that are raising concerns about which materials a school is using, or for example, lots of schools are teaching in year 1 the names of sexual body parts. Yeah, so in year 1 they're teaching different names of body parts to 5-year-old children. We can say to a school, if there's enough parents in a school that says, actually, this is not appropriate, can we teach this in year 3 or year 4 or year 5? Move it back a few years. Yeah, then we can get schools to make changes, but we can't force them. So it's important to make that difference known, that we can influence what is being taught, but we can't force a school to teach it in a particular way. So the final question, let's see how you get on. We can only make a difference if we protest outside schools or if we take schools to court. Yeah, is that true or false? That we're only going to really make a difference to RSE if we take the school to court, or if we protest outside schools? Is that true or false? Give you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see. Okay, so most people say it's false, and it's false. You know, really, we've got to get parents to constructively engage with schools. You know, protesting outside schools has a bad name. Yeah, if you protest outside schools, you will easily be shown to be the aggressors, yeah, and the school the victim. So you will lose very easily. Also, taking a school to court costs a lot of money and is very slow. And lots of the times you will not get a positive response from lots of courts. Yeah. So what we should be getting schools to do, or parents to do, is to organize. Yeah. Is not effective just for 1 or 2 parents in a school to be raising concerns, to be influential. What makes sense is if lots of parents come together. Yeah, so 20, 30, 40, 50 parents come together and raise concerns, yeah, collectively. This is what we call parent power. When parents do that, we can make a difference. But not through protests and not through taking them to court. Yeah, but we've got to organize parents in an effective, strategic way. Yeah, and we've got to get parents not to just go into schools and shout at the schools and say, "Why are you doing this to my child?" That's not effective. Yeah, we've got to know how to speak to schools and influence them. If you want to change someone's opinion, you don't shout at them. Yeah, and lots of parents do this, unfortunately. You've got to raise concerns in a constructive way. Yeah, and we can talk about that a little later, but it's the only thing that really makes a difference to how this subject is taught. Okay, so that's the end of my my quiz. Now I'm just going to share with you the PowerPoint presentation, and then we can go through that, and then we'll have some time for questions, inshallah, at the end. Yeah, so let's just go through this presentation. And you can see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, okay, so basically we went through this in the beginning. We said we're going to talk about RSE in schools and RSE in the home. We did the RSE quiz. This is some things that we should know. Yeah, that schools must consult parents when developing and reviewing their policy. We talked about this. We said that all schools have to have a written policy for relationship education and RSE. Yeah, and schools must. This is what the guidance says. This is what the government says. This is the official guidance. Schools must consult parents in developing and reviewing their policy. So developing means when a school is first writing their policy. Now all schools have written their policy, so that doesn't make any difference now. What applies here is reviewing their policy. So we said. So how often do I don't know? Are people able to use a chat box to say anything, or is that possible?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to say is to you is, how often do schools have to review their policy? Can you mention that in the chat box? How often do schools have a legal obligation to review their RSE policies? How often? In the chat box, if you can write down how often they have to review their policies. Anybody remember?
We haven't received any answer, Ustad.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think we need to engage with this. It's really important. We need some engagement from people, please. The answer is there is no fixed time limit by which a school has to review their policy. They can review every year, annually, 2 years or 3 years. The policy of the school shows how often they need to review it. Yeah. So when they review it, we need to be involved. Yeah. Schools should ensure that the policy meets the needs of pupils and parents and reflects the community they serve. I've read, I did this study I talked to you about I read 400 policies, and I looked at in-depth 400 policies across 34 cities in the country. And most of these policies don't tell you very much about what they're teaching, how they're teaching it. They don't give many details. And very few policies in areas where Muslims are majority do they even consider the religious background of people. There's only a couple of policies in there that I found were very good. Yeah, out of all the policies, there were a handful of policies I thought this is really good. The rest of the policies are very meaningless. So we've got to engage with the policies at the school. Yeah. So we said schools have a legal duty to consult with parents about the policy. Yeah, and that policy needs to be meaningful. Parents need to be asked for their views, and parents need to then input their views. Yeah, this is the opportunity for you to influence how RSE is taught at your child's school. And so it says too many schools treat parents as passive participants. So for example, they treat parents as just people who are like an audience. They don't have to work with them. We need to become collaborative partners, meaning we raise our views in a constructive way, and we work with the school to make meaningful changes to the way RSE is taught. And the key to that is the RSE policy. All schools should build positive relationships with faith communities. A good understanding of pupils' faith backgrounds and positive relationships between the school and local faith communities help to create a constructive context for the teaching of these subjects. This is where our masajid are very important. Very few masajid actually approach schools in their local area to say, look, we're here, yeah, we are here for you, yeah. We're here. Actually, some masajid may accept children who come from the school for visits, but they don't do anything beyond that. They don't go to the school and say, look, we understand that RSE is a problem for lots of parents. Sometimes there's lots of concerns about this, yeah, and we understand that the guidance says that schools should build positive relationships with faith communities. How can we help you to ensure that you're meeting the needs of Muslim children? Now, although we want to meet the needs of all children, yeah, but obviously masajid are the masajid can only get involved in meeting the needs of Muslim children because that's what the guidance says. So we should be, masajid should be involved in approaching schools and saying, look, how can we help you to ensure what's being taught is appropriate for the community the school serves and it meets the needs of Muslim children. Yeah. It says religious background of all pupils must be taken into account in planning teaching. When schools are teaching these subjects, they have to take into account the religious background of pupils to ensure that the content is appropriately handled and it's not inappropriate. So it's really important that we ensure schools do this. And unless we start asking questions, how do you take into account the religious background of my children, things will not change. Yeah. All schools should work closely with parents when planning and delivering subjects, but that doesn't happen. So we've got to change that. Yeah. Schools should ensure that their teaching and materials are appropriate, having regard to the age and religious background of the pupils. Yeah. So appropriacy, what is appropriate in terms of resources is based upon the age and the religious background of the pupils. So that means that if you say to a school, this is not appropriate, and they say it is appropriate, say, look, what is your definition of appropriate? There's understanding of age, what is appropriate at different ages, but also religious background. If our children come from a background which does not approve of showing images of naked men and women, and other cultures may be okay with that, you can't take the view of those other communities, but you must take the view of the community the school serves. Yeah, especially if we have large proportions of Muslim children at school. So it's about collaboration with parents and the community, and this is about LGBTQ. The government mentioned primary schools are not required to teach LGBTQ content, but can choose to teach it in an age-appropriate way. The Department for Education has no plans to change its advice to schools on the subject. But in the new guidance, which is still in the draft stages, yeah, it does mention a bit more about LGBTQ content in a positive way, that it shouldn't be taught in primary schools, and it's not required. So this is really good, a development. Now we need to wait for what the new government, how they respond to the consultation that just was ended just a few weeks ago. Yeah, but we should go to schools and say, look, you know that you don't have to teach this in primary schools. And if a school says we have to, say, look, the government's clarified it's not a requirement in primary schools. One of the issues is that teachers are imposing their personal views on children, which is not allowed legally. Yeah, it's not allowed in law for a teacher to say to a child, wouldn't you like to be gay? Yeah, wouldn't you like to be lesbian? Oh, you're a boy, you may be a girl, or you're a girl, you may be a boy, because this is not a factual position. This is a values-based position. If a teacher accepts LGBTQ relationships, that's their personal view. They shouldn't be pushing that onto children. They can say people from different family backgrounds exist. They are allowed to say a man is allowed to marry a man and a woman is allowed to marry a woman, because this is the law. They're allowed to mention the law, that's part of the factual position. But they're not allowed to tell children this is good and this is bad. It doesn't morally, because people have different moral perspectives, and in law they're not allowed. So they should say things. We should ensure that schools say things that some people believe that it's okay, some people believe it's not okay, and talk about a range of perspectives. Muslims believe this, Christians believe this, Jewish people believe this, some atheists believe this, some whoever believes this. They can talk about different views that people hold in society, but they can't say this is the only view. So these are some of the questions that we can ask schools. What consultation exercises have you undertaken with parents like me? Like, even how do you consult me when the RSE policy is being reviewed? How have you taken into account the religious background of my children when planning teaching? Please show me all the resources you'll be teaching. So seeing the resources, can you inform me of the name of any external organizations that support RSE teaching? Because one of the problems is outside speakers coming to school and saying, I'm a Muslim, my name's Abdullah, and I identify as gay. And there's nothing in the Quran which prohibits that. This happens a lot in schools. So we've got to find out which external organizations are coming to school and try and stop that from happening, because that's where a lot of the problems are happening. Can you clarify how I can exercise my legal right to withdraw from sex education or sex education element of RSE? So in primary school, how I can withdraw from sex education, and from secondary school, sex education element of RSE. Now we've got a withdrawal letter on our website, which you can download and complete and send to the school for that. These are some of the action points. So asking to see the materials is really important, and then feeding back to the school on that. Asking the school how it can consult parents, especially when they are reviewing their policies, and asking about any external organizations that come to school, and also working with other parents to make those changes. Because if there's one parent raising concerns, the school will just say, oh, there's one troublemaker. But if there are 20, 30, 40 parents working together who have some clear concerns and are we saying, can we change this? This is not appropriate, we don't think. Yeah, can we work together to ensure that what's being taught is appropriate for all of our children? Then a school will often listen to what parents are saying and actually engage in some dialogue. So that's about RSE in schools. Yeah, I want to talk about RSE, about responding in the home. Yeah, around our children, there are lots of influences. There's a huge amount of influences around our children. Yeah? And this is really important for us to understand. The influences are not just located in schools. Yeah, one of the greatest influences is our children's friends. Yeah, our children's friends influence them a lot. Children adopt different types of behaviors and values, and they start engaging in some really even some risky behaviors based upon, a lot of the time, their friends and what their friends push them into. That's what we call this peer pressure. Peer pressure, it can be very, very influential in our children's lives. If all the children are doing something, that one child doesn't want to stand out as different, doesn't want to stand out as being outside of the group. So it's very easy for the group to influence our children. We got what our children watch on television. Yeah, there isn't a program out there now where children watch that doesn't include LGBTQ families, or any book that they read, or any social media type content that doesn't include LGBTQ content. Yeah, such as in TikTok or on other platforms. Our children's ability to access smartphones, yeah, has opened them up to a world, yeah, where they can access every idea and value out there. Yeah, and these are not just about sexual issues. Yeah, how many times will our children hear messages that create doubts in their mind about Islam, and they got access to that on one of these small devices that they hold in their hand? And some children have doubts that build into bigger doubts, over many years, and then they start to say, oh, I doubt Islam, I doubt in Allah, I doubt in Islam, in the truth, I want to leave Islam. So we've got to be careful about the influences in our children, and we've got to be a bigger influence in our children's lives. We've got to create environments where our children are engaged with other Muslim families, and they are their strength in Islam is being built. Now, so these influences are shaping our children's attitudes and their behaviors. Unless we respond proactively, we're allowing society to raise our children. You know, one of my real fears amongst us is that raising children is seen as not important. Yeah, how we raise children is not important. Every other issue in the world is the important issue. When you speak to parents about raising children, yeah, I know that's important, but they don't really want to do much about it. Yeah, lots of parents, I see sometimes the behavior of Muslim children, I think, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the next generation. Because in their behavior, they act just like non-Muslim children. And what does that tell you about the values that they're holding on to? They walk down the street and they don't even have the idea in their mind that when somebody is walking on the street, you should move to the side to let them pass. Yeah. When somebody is open, when a door is being when you're opening a door, you look behind you to see if there's anybody else that you can help. The idea that we are here to serve others as Muslims. The highest calling for a Muslim is to serve others for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. It's become individualism. What can I do? What can I get? What can I achieve? It's individualism, which is what the primary value of liberalism is. Yeah, securing your rights. In Islam, responsibility is more important than rights. But that cannot happen unless, as parents, we are raising our children with the values that we want to hold on to. Now, raising children doesn't mean giving them talks about what Islam says or not. It does to a certain extent, but 90% is in our own behavior. If we are consumerists, buying everything every day, whatever our desires want, then we are raising consumers. If we are focusing on ourselves and our individual rights, and we are watching entertainment all day, and they don't see us going to the masjid, reading the Quran, they don't see us learning about Islam, they don't see us trying to develop ourselves Islamically, then why should they? If the only thing we do during the week is to go to Jum'ah and that's it, then they'll go to Jum'ah and they'll become the Friday Muslim like everybody else. I went to a conference once. Yeah, it was hundreds of people there. Yeah, and we had different workshops, and one workshop was about jinn. Yeah, the influence of jinn, and the other workshop was about raising children that I was delivering. Now, 80% of participants went to the jinn workshop, even though they were all parents. This was a family conference. And then 20% came to my workshop. And I said at the end, when we had when all the parents were there, and we had a plenary meeting, like this, a meeting of everybody, I said, how many of you are parents? And everybody put their hands up. How many of you have ever been affected by jinn? No hands went up. I said, so why did you choose to go to the jinn workshop and not to the parenting workshop? We need to find ways in which we engage parents in the important task of parenting. Yeah. And that means mothers as well as fathers as well as mothers, because we should stop seeing the role of raising, the tarbiyah, the development, the nurturing of our children should not be seen as the mother's role only. Yeah. Okay, if the father is out working all day, the mother is with the children more, that's fine. That's her primary role in raising children. But the father still has an important role in the home, in terms of being a role model for his children, in terms of being, and I'll talk about this later about fathers, which is a huge problem in our community we need to deal with. But you know what I'm saying here is there's two things that we need to focus upon in our children: building strong foundations in our children and emotional security in our children. Now, if you look at the LGBTQ and the sexual messages that our children are getting, so either children who are saying I identify as LGBTQ, I identify as gay, or I identify as lesbian, or I'm a boy, I want to be a girl, or I want to be a girl who wants to be a boy, or if it's a child who is engaged in zina, or who's involved in so many other things that are against our deen. There are lots of vulnerabilities which create a lot of this. You know, the first vulnerability is in their foundational weakness, and the second vulnerability is in emotional insecurity. So we got to deal with both weaknesses. So we're saying that if we can deal with these two weaknesses, then we can lessen the chance that our children will stray away from Sirat al-Mustaqim. And that's what we need to focus upon. And the third one is about disrupting normalization, which I'm going to talk about at the end. But you know, the question I want to ask is, look, and maybe you won't answer in this chat, but I'll answer it for you. When most Muslim children are asked, why are you Muslim? What do you think the most common answer is? Yeah. And this is really important. You might not see it as important, but it is. If a child is asked, yeah, this could be a a 7-year-old child, it could be an 8-year-old child, it could be a 14 or 15-year-old child. Why are you Muslim? When I ask children, why are you Muslim? The answer is, my parents are Muslim. And this is not acceptable, because they're placed, because being Muslim is not just that's the religion we follow. Yeah, no, being Muslim is fulfilling the very purpose for which we were created. Yeah, religion in this society is seen as, that's your religion, that's your religion, that's a personal belief. No, that's a secular view of religion. Religion is about, or the deen of al-Islam is about answering the key questions of who created us, what is our purpose in life, and what would happen to us when we die, and why this world is just a temporary abode in which we are tested to determine who are the best in deeds, and our outcome in the akhirah will be dependent upon how we live our life in this temporary dunya. And so I think this is really important for us to understand. Is the question of why are you Muslim is a fundamental question. When our children are asked why are you Muslim, it shouldn't be my parents are Muslim. It's because I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me. He created me, and he sent the last messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, with the last and final revelation, which is the Quran. And this Quran is from the heavens, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to the guide for how I should live my life and how humanity should live their lives. Yeah, that should be how they view it. Yeah, and they shouldn't view it just as a statement. Yeah, they should view it as something more important. Let's look at this. We believe that all sexual relationships outside of a marriage between a man and a woman, outside of nikah between a man and a woman, are haram. Any sexual relationship outside of a marriage between a man and a woman through nikah are haram. So that means, that the person who believes that knows, I know Allah prohibited any relationships before marriage, any relationships outside of the marital relationship between a man and a woman, or any same-sex relationships between a man and a man and a woman are prohibited in the Quran. They are completely forbidden in the Quran. There is no difference about this. It is clear-cut prohibition. Yeah. And then they should know that this comes from the Quran, yeah, and from the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, both revelation. Yeah, this comes from the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I know the Quran is definitely the word of Allah, and it sets our purpose. Yeah, it sets our purpose in life. So they should know that. They should know that as a certainty, not just as a slogan, but they should know that as a certainty. And then they should also know that the starting point is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me. Now, we live in a society where most people don't believe in a God. Most people don't believe in a God. Most people don't follow a religion. They may nominally, they may in name only say, I'm a Christian or I'm whatever, but they don't really follow Christianity. They may be once a year they go to the church, if that. Or they may say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Most people don't believe in a God. Our children are being brought up in a society where believing in a religious, believing in a deen and something supernatural that doesn't have a basis in the secular world is considered to be abnormal. And unless we can build in our children, like we say to our children, same-sex relationships are haram. Yeah, if somebody identifies as gay, this is not allowed in Islam. You're not allowed to identify as gay or as lesbian. You're not allowed to adopt identities which are based on actions which are prohibited in Islam. Now, we can say that to our children, but if they don't have an idea, if they don't have certainty on where this idea comes from, or just an opinion that Muslims hold, no, it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's best for us. If they don't know that with certainty, it becomes much easier for them to adopt anything else in society. Yeah, the picking mix of ideologies that exist around them. Yeah. So the reason why we're talking about this is because we must have a holistic solution to this problem. The LGBTQ problem, every other week now, I'm getting calls from parents saying, look, my just last week I got a call to say, look, my son, he identifies as gay. Yeah. I got another call from someone says my daughter is a lesbian, identifies as lesbian. Another call the other day to say, look, my daughter wants to be a boy. Yeah, what do I do about this? Yeah, and I don't get many calls around this in terms of people just call me because they hear something on the internet and say, "Oh, come, I'm not here for that job. I'm not qualified to support people in this job." But the parents are desperate. They don't know where to turn to because there's no place for support around this. But this is a reactive response. Now, obviously, when this happens in your home, you have to respond. What I'm saying is we need to build a much more proactive response to all of these ideologies that are threatening the very values of our children. And at its heart is that we must build yaqeen, certainty in Allah as our creator. And this might sound very simple, and it is simple. The aqidah of Islam is very simple and is built upon the fitra, the innate disposition of human beings, that they have been given the capacity to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the creation. They recognize the creator through the creation. Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran doesn't say to human beings, just believe in me, like the Christian belief, just believe in me, it's a feeling. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence is based upon the things that He's created and the enormity of creation, the design of creation, the magnificence of creation. If this is the creation, then what about the one who created this? That the words to describe the one who created this, there are no words. Yeah, because if you look at the complexity of any part of creation, the human body. Yeah, my children were doing the GCSE human biology, just looking at the different systems in the body, reproductive system or the respiratory system or the digestive system, all of the aspects of human beings, or even the animal kingdom, or even anything around you, you see in creation those signs that Allah is the creator. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks the mushrikeen of Mecca when the Quran first came down, and by extension asks us all, or were they created by nothing, or are they the creators? You know, you're on this earth. You're on this earth, and who is your creator? There is nothing that tangible that we see around us that we don't assign the role of designer. Yeah, a phone, I don't know, a table, a car. Nobody says, "Oh, that just came about one day through some sort of magic." No, everything is ascribed to a designer, something that made it, that manufactured it, something that put it together, designed it. But for the creation, we have no designer. People are happy to live this life believing that nothing is the creator. So if they didn't create it, then are they the creators? No. Human beings can't create anything. They can make things and fashion things from the things around them, but they can't create, because creation is the ability to bring something from nothing, and that's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, most surely in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day are signs for people of understanding. You know, we've got to connect our children from the signs around them every day to the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because everything around them every day disconnects them from their ultimate purpose and the ultimate creator. We need to reconnect them to the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if we live in cities where there are very few things around us that can connect them. We don't have the mountains, we don't have we don't have lots of greenery. Yeah, we have concrete buildings, we have trees, we have the leaves that fall down from different trees in the park in autumn, 20, 30, 40, 50 different types of leaves from different trees planted in the same soil. We have wildlife programs which talk about the complexity of human of the animal kingdom. Yeah, we have so many things around them that we can utilize to connect them to the creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what we got to do. We got to build that firm certainty that Allah is my creator. Yeah. So everything that has a cause has a creator. Yeah. Everything that is created has a cause. So the bread, the very bread that we eat, yeah, even though it's processed in a factory that makes thousands of loaves a day, yeah, it's created in a factory, and that and the primary ingredient of bread is the wheat that is milled to make flour, that is added to water, to yeast, to create bread, which is then baked in the oven. But then, in terms of where did that first seed that planted the wheat come from? Last year during the summer, I did this. I was asked by a local masjid to do in two locations to do activities for children. Yeah, some older children, and that's why we talked to the older children. That was fine, but some were young, between the ages of maybe 6 and 9. And so what we did was we just wanted the session to be around children connecting the things they see around them, everyday objects, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, so what we did was we took a bag full of different objects: a spoon, a plastic bottle, a paper cup, what else we did with some fruit, maybe it was a tangerine, a banana. All of these things we brought together and put them in a bag. The children came up one by one and picked an object out of the bag, and we said, is this object, is this man-made or is it natural? So either natural would be like fruit, man-made would be like spoon, something that is developed and designed or manufactured in a factory, for example. And then we went to every object to say, where did it come from? Even, for example, the plastic, yeah, the plastic bottle, the empty plastic bottle. We went back step by step. Where does the plastic come from? And we talked about the plastic comes from the original source of crude oil from the ground. Yeah, the oil under the ground, deep within the ground. Where does this come from? It comes from a process whereby different plants and animals were died, and it over thousands or tens of thousands, or even sometimes over hundreds of thousands of years, this developed into oil under the ground. Now, who created that? Who created the ability of these plants and algae to turn into this crude oil? Plants and algae which don't necessarily serve much of a purpose, but then the crude oil serves about 1,000 different purposes, from the petrol in the car that we put in to the plastics that are created from different objects, mostly in our house. Those objects that are plastic all come from that crude oil in the ground. Who created the ability of that oil to be turned into that, to be utilized for that? And then every single time you go back to that first starting point, that question mark at the beginning, it's always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, human beings today are satisfied with that question mark without assigning any name to it. But we know the name that we assign to it. It's the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that created everything from nothing. And so we've got to connect our children to, and this is a practical aqeedah. This is a real connection between purpose and meaning in life, our origin to life itself. You know, a Bedouin was once asked, this is the Bedouins, we know the characteristics of a Bedouin is that a Bedouin is not a PhD graduate, is not the most cleverest of people. He survives in the desert. Yeah, he survives through the byproducts of the camel that he takes from one place to another in the desert. And when he was asked, how do you know your Lord exists? He replied, look, camel dung indicates camels. Donkey dung indicates donkeys, and footprints indicate travel. So the sky with its constellations and the seas with its waves, don't these indicate the all-knowing, the all-powerful? Look at this answer. It is excellent, because Islam is, the deen of Islam, the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that everybody, no matter what their thinking level, can come to. Everybody, no matter what their status is in society, can come to that same conclusion of there being a creator. Now, because the Bedouin, he deals with animals and his reality is animals, he used that reality
to come to this conclusion? He didn't, like, if he were to see camel dung on the ground, he didn't see the camel. He would know that camel passed by. If he saw donkey dung, which is different from camel dung, he would know that a donkey had passed by. And if he saw footprints, human footprints in the sand, even though he never saw the one who was traveling, he would know that there was a traveler that passed sometime in the past. That he would know that so it's that cause and effect. If you see an effect, that effect has to have a cause. Just like the constellations, the seas, all these things around him that he saw, these indicate the all-knowing, the all-powerful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created the seas, who created the stars in the sky. Yeah, this is cause and effect. And so this is a really even the cleverest of people in the society cannot come to this conclusion, because they block themselves from acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because maybe of negative experience with religion in the past. Maybe it's because of the fact that most people in the society don't believe in a God. Maybe because they think that believing in a God, it makes me out to be not be an intellectual, makes me out to be someone stupid like the religious people. Whatever their reason, they block themselves from using their intelligence to recognize that they were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just very briefly, like the camel, look at the camel. This is the Bedouin deals with the camel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have they not considered how the camels have been created? And some people at the time were saying, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use examples in the Quran of things that are seemingly insignificant? Camel, why mention the camel? But just it's only in recent history, when people have looked at the camel and they look deeply at the different aspects of the camel's functionality. Camels live in the deserts, and in the desert all there is sand, and there's sandstorms which blow the sand. And if the sand were to be blown up the nostrils or in the eyes of a camel, if it blew up the nostrils of a camel, that could stop the camel from breathing. If it blew into the eyes of the camel could not see then. Yeah, and this will be a danger to the camel. So the camel's eyelids has got like this like thin piece of membrane that protects the eyes from sandstorms, even though it still allows the camel to see, and it lets in the light for the camels to see, but it stops the sand from entering the eyes. It's got nostrils which it can close. If there's a high wind in the desert, it can close its nostrils without having to do anything. It just closes it at will, and it protects it from the sand. It's got thick lips which allow them to chew thorny plants, because in the desert you don't have much vegetation, but you have thorny plants, and it can eat that and survive through that. And it also has the ability to survive without water, because in the desert it has to do that, survive with water for up to 15 days and food for several months. Yeah, and so it can store the fat, and then it can drink up to 130 liters of water in 10 minutes, and it can store that water so that it can then survive another 15 days without water. This is amazing. This is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should when our children look into the complexities of this world, do not allow them just to look into the complexities of the world as a fact. This is a fun fact. No, they should use it as a means by which they connect themselves to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I say to people, how many plants are there in this photo? There are 0 plants in this photo. Yeah, these are all insects. Yeah, that camouflage themselves as plants to protect themselves in places where there's lots of leaves, so that they are not eaten by predators. This is amazing. Yeah, if your blood vessels if the blood vessels in the human body were taken out of the body and spread from end to end, yeah, how many miles would it reach? Yeah, it would reach 60,000 miles. This is the complexity that Allah has created within us, complexity of human creation. And when I look at the fish under the ocean, sometimes you think these are what they call CGI, computer generated images. They are made up. This is amazing. Look at how beautiful they are. Their vivid colors, the shapes, all living under the ocean. And this is from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the red crown tail betta fish. Yeah, the mandarin fish. Look how beautiful that is. Yeah, there's so many more examples than that, but obviously for time we won't mention it. But the key point here is connect our children to the creator by connecting them to the creation and asking them do you think that came from nothing? Do you think, who do you think created that? Yeah, and that you can do that from a young age, but even from an old age. Who do you think created that the complexity in the world? I know we talk about the Quran. I'll go through this very briefly, but once we know that the Creator Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, the question is, how does Allah Subhanahu wa Taala communicate to us? And you know, one of the problems is our children pick up the Quran. Yeah, they pick up the Quran and they read it. Yeah, they learn Juz' Amma. Maybe they start to memorize the Quran. But when they pick up the Quran, the Mus'haf, do they say this Quran is from Allah in the heavens? Do they actually even acknowledge that? Or is it, oh, we're just reading another book and we just have to go to the maktab or the madrasa and that's it? No, we need for them to connect and appreciate this is the weighty words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when the Prophet received this revelation, it was such a weighty matter, he would sweat, his body would tremble because of the nature of this revelation being from Allah, from the heavens. It's not a light matter, it's a huge matter. Yeah, we're not saying this is another book written by an author who told us a story. No, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it may sound obvious, but actually we need to keep reminding our children about this, about the miraculous nature of the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the question is, how do we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of the Quran? Yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes we think we shouldn't ask our children these questions, but we should. Our children will be asked these questions about other people, and if they don't independently have an understanding that Allah is my creator, that the Prophet brought the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us as the last revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to creation, then their doubts will enter their mind, and they will not be able to appreciate when Allah says do this and don't do that, to do this and not do that. They need to understand when we're saying to them, we should not have sexual relations outside of marriage. Yeah, and you can only have relations outside of marriage with your future wife or your future husband through a nikah. Yeah, they need to understand it's not me that's telling them this, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't care what does as a parent, your word doesn't matter too much in terms of in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that is the weighty matter. Yeah, that is the weighty matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is very brief, but this is about telling us that we need to connect our children to the miracle of the Quran. One central way that the Quran does this is by saying to people that, look, if you are unsure about the authorship of this book, you don't believe that it's from the heavens, yeah, then bring every human being, every unseen being, every AI tool at your disposal to bring the like of the Quran. Yeah, to bring the like of the Quran. Yeah, bring anything of the Quran. Yeah, if you think this is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, Allah challenged the Quraysh, and the challenge is open today, but the Quraysh were the best in Arabic. They were the best of poets. They were the founders of the language. They were the pinnacle of Arabic was at the time of the Quraysh. And so Allah challenged them, bring something like it. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, I'm not going to give you a general challenge. Just bring 10 surahs like it, 10 surah, 10 chapters of the Quran, the like of it, and you would have shown that the Quran is fabricated. And then they were not able to do that. Then Allah says, okay, I'll make it easy for you. Allah is almost playing with them. Yeah. So because we all know that nobody's going to be able to bring the like of the Quran because it's divine in origin. So Allah says, bring just one surah like it. Just bring one single surah like it, like the length of Surah Kawthar, the shortest surah in the Quran. Just bring 3 short verses, yeah, like the Quran, if you think that this is from other than Allah. And you know, the Quraysh, they knew that it was from Allah. What stopped them was not knowing it's the truth. It was other reasons. It was their forefathers. It was what would it look like if I became Muslim? How would it be? It would look like a betrayal to my forefather. You know, all of these other matters were the things that stopped them from becoming Muslim. Not that they didn't recognize it to be the truth. They never ever believed really that the Quran came from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They knew the Prophet was unlettered. They knew he did not know how to read and write. They knew he could never, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, bring this Quran from himself. He knew that it came from someone else, and that someone else is not a human being. Yeah, that someone else is something else other than human beings. So what we're going to do is we're going to build foundational strength in our children. Yeah, we've got to build emotional foundational strength, meaning that they need to be able to connect the fact that they were created by Allah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah as an additional revelation, all being revelation from Allah, both the Quran and the Sunnah, as a guide for human beings to live their lives. Yeah, and we need to develop that. And the miraculous of the Quran testifies to the messengership and the prophethood of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being the truthful messenger of Allah, because the one who brings the miracle is the messenger from Allah who sent the miracle. So we need to build that foundation of strength in our children, and we also need to now build emotional security in our children. Now, I'm going to go through this very briefly, but this is so important as well. These first two are so important. The third one is important, but not as important as the first two. So emotional security, what does this mean? Now, when I'm usually speaking to communities, I say to them, put your hands up if you love your children. And obviously every parent put their hand up. I've never been at an event where a parent has not put their hands up, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created within human beings, within parents, the love for their children. And this is also a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How could it be this how could you quantify a love, especially for a father? A mother's love is different, because a mother carries the child for 9 months in her own body. The child is being nurtured in her body. Yeah, it's being fed in her body, it's growing inside her body. She can feel it. So the love of the mother is seen as quite an obvious love. But a father who's not connected to the child in that way, but when the child then is placed in his arms and he connects that he's a father of this new life, this can only be explained by the might, the majesty, and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in placing within the fathers this love for a child which didn't exist before the child was born. It's amazing. It's amazing. This is a huge thing. One day I don't have any responsibility. I'm not a father. Next day I'm a father, and I hold my child, and I feel that a love I've never felt before for another human being, and the one to protect, and the one to safeguard, and the one to want the best for that child. And then the problem and the issue is that for mother and the father, the love for the child never ends. Yeah, it's not like child turns 16 or 18, okay, now I can turn off that love. It's always there. And as we know, I remember with my father passed away a couple of years ago, but even up to his last day, his concern for his children was still there. He was worried what will happen to my children, because this is the natural concern that parents have for their children, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created within us. Now, so we ask parents, put your hands up if you love your children. Every parent puts their hands up. And then I ask another question. Put your hands up if your children know you love them. And then there's an uncertainty here. Because obviously we all know we love our children. But how do our children know we love them? That may sound quite straightforward and quite clear, but actually it's not. Yeah, there's a difference between the two. How do you show love to your children? And how do our children understand love? Yeah. Now, historically, especially for fathers, historically, the father would show love for his children by putting food on the table, not by cooking it, but by working hard during the day in work to bring money into the home, to buy food for the table, to pay the bills, the roof over the head, to pay for the clothes that the children wear. These were ways our fathers would show love to us. Yeah, they would show love by being the breadwinner. Yeah, but children need to understand love in a in a much more direct way. Lots of children today are growing up without feeling that love. Yeah, because love is a basic need of every child. We talked about before that if a child does not have this foundational strength, does not have a strong certainty that Allah created me, that the Quran and the Sunnah is the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a guide for me, whatever Allah and His Messenger brought are revelation for me to follow in life. If they don't have that certainty, that can build vulnerabilities in them. So that builds uncertainty. Why should I follow this? Also here, where vulnerability is created by a child not knowing that their father loves them, yeah, or not knowing with enough certainty that my father loves me. So a child who lacks love will act out their vulnerabilities. One of the vulnerabilities of a child who feels they're not loved by their father is they're looking for that love elsewhere. Either they look for that love in sexual relationships, or in a relationship of a boy with another boy, or a girl with another boy, a girl. Yeah, so it could be, it builds vulnerabilities in children. Everybody, including children, understand love visibly. Just by a father going out and paying the bills is not necessarily a way of showing love. There's something called the 5 love languages, which I'll explain in a little while. Yeah, and your way of showing your child, a father's way of showing his child love, will be different from how a child understands love. Because it's like, imagine if you speak Bengali and your child doesn't understand Bengali. Imagine there are some homes like this, yeah, where the father speaks Bengali, and the mother does as well, but the children don't really speak Bengali, don't understand it very well. Yeah, you can speak as much as you want in Bengali to your child. If they don't understand it, they will not be able to respond to what you're asking them to do. Similarly, love is also a language. You communicate in it, yeah, and it's the one who speaks in that language needs to speak in the same language as the one who understands it the way they speak it. Yeah, and I'll explain this in a little while when we talk about the 5 love languages. But also, especially for fathers, because we know that the love of the mother is very clear and known to children, but the father's love is sometimes absent from the homes, and that's why also our ability to influence our children is based upon how much we love them and show them love in a visible way. And if you don't have that love, you will never be able to influence your child. Yeah, it's a foundation for influencing your child. So as I said before, the love of a child is most missing from our homes. So these are the 5 ways in which we can visibly love for our children. So one is physical touch, hugs, cuddles, kisses, and pats on the back. Affirming words of affection, endearment, praise, and encouragement. Quality time, focus, undivided attention, being together, spending time together, giving gifts, and acts of service. Now, I want to go over this very briefly. Physical touch, yeah. Now, this is a very important way of showing love. Yeah? When a child is younger, you hug them, you kiss them. Maybe they get older, they don't want to show that. But you can still find ways in which you can pat them on the back. Touch the aspect of touch conveys love to a child. And for example, the Prophet was once sitting opposite another Sahabi by the name of Al-Aqra ibn Habis al-Tamimi. Now, Al-Aqra had just witnessed the Prophet ﷺ kissing his grandson, Hassan ibn Ali, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And so he kissed his grandson, and then Al-Aqra looked upon him and said, "Look, I've got 10 children, and I never kiss any of them." It was like a boast. It's like, look what a man I am. The Prophet said, "Man la yarham, la yurham." Whoever does not show mercy will not be shown mercy. Yeah, it's like, you know, you show mercy to your children by kissing them, by hugging them, by showing them that you love them. This is mercy, and whoever withholds mercy from them like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will withhold mercy upon them. So he was rebuking Al-Aqra. He was not saying to him, this is a good thing that you do, that you boast you've had 10 children and you've never kissed any of them. Rather, this is a sign of your mercy to your child, and a very almost an integral part of your showing love to your child. I remember when we were growing up, and this is about hugs as well. When we were growing up, we used to hug our father only twice every year. Only twice every year. And and those 2 times were the times of Eid. So we would come back from the Eid Salah, and we would hug our father. And it was very awkward because we'd never hug our father any other time other than that. We need to show love to our children in ways in which they understand love. So physical touch is one of them. Affirming words, in other words, the way you praise your children, the way you first, if you say to your child, if you've never said to your child, I love you as a father, say it to your child. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, your child need to know, and it can't be a one-off. It has to be a regular thing. One of the ways of showing love to your child is by praising them, yeah, for things that they've done. And those things have to be things like, first, but they can't be, you can't praise them for everything. Like they walk down 10 flight of stairs. Oh, well done for walking down the stairs. It has to be something of importance. Yeah. Either they do a behavior which you're proud of. Yeah. So, for example, they're kind to their brother or sister. You look, Abdullah, I saw how you were kind to your brother and sister. I'm very proud of you. That was, mashallah, that was beautiful. Yeah, that was I'm so happy about that. Now that serves 2 purposes. That shows that you see what your child does and that you appreciate what your child has done, but also that shows your child that you love them, and also that encourages them to do that much more. When you praise your child for something that they've done, an action or a characteristic, that encourages them to do that thing much more. And sometimes what we do is we focus on the negative. If our child does something wrong, why do you do that wrong? Why do you do that wrong? Why do you do that wrong? And so 10 times we say what our child done wrong, and we never say, maybe once in every time we talk about something that they've done right. We need to focus more on what they've done right. Focus on their achievements. Thank them. Say Jazakumullah khairan, well done. I'm proud of that. Praise them, but praise them for the effort, not for the results. So if, for example, our children are trying to be hafaz of the Quran, then if they start to memorize pages of the Quran, some children will take longer to memorize the Quran than others, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the capacity of good memory more in some children than others. So if we focus on the children who are not doing well, they're memorizing small amounts of Quran, but they're still putting in the effort. We say to that child, I see the effort you're putting into. The Messenger of Allah talked about people who stumble and struggle to memorize, to read the Quran and to put effort into it, and they get twice the reward. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees your effort, and I see your effort, and I'm really proud of you. Imagine that. Yeah, and then the child who's memorizing 3 or 4 pages of Quran still focus on their effort and say, oh, you're doing a lot of effort, well done, keep it up. But focus on the effort, because the effort is in our control. The results is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So focus on the effort and not the result, and focus on the effort because the effort can always be improved. The result is an end product that can't be improved. So focus on the effort. Also with our daughters live in a society in which the main attribute that is considered to be important for a child, for a girl especially, is how she looks. Everything around a child, from social media, the influencers, the magazines that they see around them, the films that they see on TV, all of them are focused heavily upon how a woman looks rather than anything else. So when we focus on praising our daughters, which we should as fathers, we need to focus on what we call a 5-to-1 rule. Every time you say your child is, you should say to your daughter, you're beautiful, or you look nice in that dress. But 5 times more than that, you need to focus on something which is not superficial, something which is not focused on just the way she looks. Well done. I heard you reciting Surah Al-Waqi'ah, for example. Your recitation was beautiful, mashallah. Really, you put so much effort into your recitation. I'm really proud of you. Or the other day or yesterday, when you were looking after your brothers and sisters and you were very kind to them, I saw that. I was so proud of you. Yeah, keep that up. Just focus on things which they've done, which exemplify characteristics of behavior which you like and you want them to do more of, and focus upon that. Not only, so you're killing many birds with one stone. You're focusing on something you want to do more of, and you're also focusing on the fact that what's more important than the way you look is what you do, how you behave in life, how you imitate and model behaviors from the Sahabiyat, from the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, how you focus on being a better Muslim. Similar to our sons as well, focus on, as I said before, focus on praising them on effort, not results as well. Quality time. Quality time is huge, is another way of showing love to your child. When you spend time with them, away from everything, any distractions, you are focused purely upon them. You play a game together, for example. I don't know, they like football, you play football. They like computer games, play computer games with them. Yeah, they like to, I don't know, you go to the masjid together, you go out to dinner together, and also focus on one-to-one time with each of your children. If you've got 3, 4, 5 children, spend time with them collectively, but also one-to-one. You get to know your child much more by spending quality time with them. Say, oh, let's go out and have I don't know, a milkshake. Yeah, or let's go out and we're gonna go to let's have an ice cream together. Yeah, go out, spend some time together, and then they'll speak to you in a much more freer way. Oh, they'll speak to you about things that they've done in the day. You find out more about them. It's really important. Giving gifts and acts of service. These last two are not as important as the first three, but they're still important. Some children give, like, for example, if you go away on a journey, you come back as a father, you buy some small things, not very expensive things, buy them some small things to say, oh, I remembered you. They will be so pleased with that. And the focus is not about how much a gift costs. It's about what the gift conveys in terms of love. So buy them something small and say, look, I was thinking of you. That shows love. And it's about undeserved gifts. So it's not as if they pass their exams and you buy them a gift. That's not what we're saying here. It's something that it's a surprise for them. Yeah. Acts of service are things like fixing something for them, cooking them their favorite meal. It's about painting their room or doing something as act of service for them that they see as valuable. That also shows love. The first three are the foundations of everything, are the most important. The last two still do that, but they're not as important as the first three. The final thing I want to talk about is disrupting normalization. You know, things become normal in a society when most people do something most of the time and publicly. Yeah. So the things become normalized, changing in society, not when one person or two people do something, when lots of people do something, and not when people do it in their homes. In their home, doing something in your home doesn't affect the way people do something publicly. Things that people do on social media, which is viewed 1,000, 50,000, these things change people's norms, change people's values, change people's behaviors. Things which were not normal before became normal because lots of people started to do them in a public way most of the time. And that's why things in society are normal. Like, for example, if our children watch any film these days, if they watched a film maybe 40 years ago, the woman in the film will probably be a mother, will probably be looking after her children. Now, every time a woman is shown in a film, she's the action figure. She's doing what a man does, because in this society, women should be doing what men do, because there's no difference between a man and a woman. You know, what a man can do, a woman should be able to do. So the woman fights, a woman does all these things. You know, a woman is the hero, like in the film, because that's the changing norms in society. Yeah. So even films change the way people view norms. Even when you speak to Muslim children now and you say to them, oh, look, what do you think about a woman staying at home looking after her children? No, that's old. That's not what we do these days. We're really, both people should be out working and should be doing the same thing. You know, it's like these norms have changed in society, and a lot of the norms that have changed in society go against our norms as Muslims. So what we're going to do is we're going to respond to these norms. Firstly, we've got to recognize that most people do what they do because most people do what most people in a society, if you ask them, why do you do that? I said, what do you mean, why do I do that? That's just what we do. They can't explain why. Why are you dressed like that? What do you mean? This is normal. Yeah, the answer is this is normal. There's no reason to. If you brought one person in this society, maybe a man and a woman now, and brought their grandparents from maybe from 60 years ago and brought them into the same room, yeah, they would not recognize each other. You're dressed funny. No, you are dressed funny because the way people dress is different. Yeah, women. If you look at old films from the 60s, 50s, and 60s, women would go out in the street, usually wear something to cover their hair slightly. Yeah, they would cover their full bodies. Yeah, they would dress in a particular way, act in a particular way. Now that's all changed because norms in the society have changed. Yeah, so most people do what they do because most people do what they do. That's how people behave. So we got to recognize that that most people are not behaving or dressing or doing what they're doing because they believe in that way of doing things. It's because that's most people are behaving in that way. We've also got to acknowledge that most children just want to fit in. Most children, if most a child does not want to stand out from the crowd, yeah, which is why peer pressure is so problematic. Because if our children are friends with lots of people from different backgrounds, yeah, even other Muslim children, yeah, who don't behave in a way which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger have legislated, have encouraged us to act, but they act like every other person in society, our children become affected by that and act in that way. Yeah, we need to acknowledge first of all that most children just want to fit in. We should also appreciate there's been a big push to normalize or usualize LGBTQ plus relationships. It's really been a big push. Yeah. And also we need to recognize that there's a process by which things become normal within our children, but we can also disrupt them. Yeah, we can disrupt them. And the good thing about us as Muslims, we've got a way of disrupting them. Imagine, this week, for example, they talked about how so many women in the society are being sexually abused, are being mistreated by men. And the issue is why? And they talk about children need to be educated in schools. No, they don't need educated in schools because if a society is not based upon any clear morals of what is right and wrong, then what makes that behavior towards women bad? We have a Sharia which tells us that this is how a man should treat a woman and a woman should treat a man. This is how we behave. This is how we stay apart. This is what we do. That doesn't exist in society because when people in the society moved away from religion, moved away from Christianity, they didn't just move away from Christianity. They moved away from acknowledging what is called an objective morality, meaning a morality that comes from God. They moved towards a morality that comes from man. Now, what I believe is good and bad is what I believe is good and bad. Why should the Creator tell me what is good and bad? Now, when human beings start to decide what is good and bad, that means anything becomes good or bad. Yeah. So we're in this mess we are in today that can't be solved unless people start to move beyond this worship of the self, of this morality of the self, to a morality from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So where do your children learn about sex and LGBTQ? Look, when I ask this question in any gathering, people say they learn it from social media, from friends, from TV programs, from books, from schools. And I say, what about the home? Why not the home? Because sometimes as parents, we don't feel as though we can discuss it in the home for a variety of different reasons. And I ask parents, what stops you from discussing these topics in the home? Sometimes because parents have not been, as when we were growing up, our parents didn't discuss it with us. We don't know how to discuss it. We're frightened to discuss it. We don't know what to do, how to do it. And so there's this one hadith of the Prophet I want to briefly cover. Yeah. Once this young man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission to commit zina." A young man, yeah, and he did it publicly in front of lots of people. And so the people responded, "Go away, that's disgusting, how dare you come here?" And they started to shout at him and say to be quiet. Prophet said, come sit with me. Yeah. And so he got the young man to sit down next to him, very close to him, touching, their knees touching, and he asked him, "What do you want?" He goes, "Give me permission to commit zina." The Prophet said to him, "Would you like it for your mother?" And the young man was like, "What? Of course I wouldn't like it for my mother." The Prophet said, people do not want it for their mothers. Would you like it for your sister? No, of course not. I would not want my sister to commit zina. Of course not. Prophet said, people don't like it for their sisters. The Prophet asked him, would you like it for your daughter? He said, absolutely not. No way would I want my daughter to commit zina. The Prophet said, the people don't like it for their daughters either. And then the Prophet said, would you like it for your maternal aunt, your mother's sister, or your paternal aunt, your father's sister? They said, no, of course I don't want it for my aunts. The Prophet said, people do not want it for their aunts either. Then he touched the young man, and then he made dua for him. Oh Allah, forgive his sins, purify his heart, and guard his chastity. But if we could spend one session on this, it will take maybe 3 or 4 hours to cover this with the depth that it requires, because the lessons in this interaction are lessons that we can use to break down the fear we have to discuss this with our own children. Think about it. Look, let's look at some of the lessons that we can learn from this. The lessons we can learn from this are, for example, why did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why did he use the example of women? These women, mother, sister, daughter, aunts. It's because these women are so important to him. These women, if anybody attacked them, he would be willing to die for them. So he used an example that would be the most emotionally connecting to him. Yeah, it's not necessarily an intellectual argument, really. It's more an emotional argument, because look, this person is being moved by desires, which is emotion. Yeah, it's not intellect, it's emotion. He's being moved by emotion. The person is responding with emotion and saying to him, would you like it for your mother? Other people don't like it for their mothers. He's trying to say to him, look, if you want to commit zina with somebody's sister, yeah, then why is it that you don't want somebody to commit zina with your sister? Yeah, why should it be that you are so disgusted with someone committing zina with your sister, but you would never want someone to commit zina with your sister? All women have nobility, have an honor in Islam, and therefore somebody's sister is also the same as your sister. He's also trying to tell him, look, almost saying this out loud. Saying these things out loud is very important, yeah, because although he knows zina is haram, the Prophet is not telling him something new. He already knows this is haram. That's what the Prophet doesn't ever say to him in this conversation, is it's haram, don't do it, because the young man already knows it. He wants permission to have permission to commit zina for him, yeah, but he knows it's haram. So the Prophet is trying to connect him to the women in his life. What you want for your women, you should also want for other people's women. You should also recognize that this emotion is something you can control. Prophet is telling him, look, you can control this. It's not something that every desire can be controlled. A desire does not have control over you. You have control over that desire. How you respond to that desire is up to you. Now, also, you don't have control when a desire comes to you, but you have control over how you respond to that desire. And then he says to this young man all these questions. He also touches the young man, which is a language of love. He's showing the young man I love you, by touching him. Maybe the hadith doesn't explain where he touched him. Maybe he touched him on the head, yeah, or he touched him on the shoulder or on the hands. But that shows love. Where you touch it on the head or the shoulder or the hands, you're showing love. And then he made dua for him. Oh Allah, forgive his sins, purify his heart, and guard his chastity, which is about turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Allah to change the heart of this young man. And they said after this, the young man never thought about committing zina again. Now here we learn that you can discuss these things with your children. It's not discussing sexual matters with your children within the context is not wrong, is allowed for educational purposes, for tarbiyah purposes, for the purpose of helping a child to understand their obligations to their creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's absolutely allowed to discuss it. Yeah, and it's also about enabling a child to come to their own conclusion, not giving them a lecture, but helping them to talk through the problem to come to their own conclusion. This is about creative thinking. So helping them to come to their own conclusion. This is really, really important. Often our children come to us and we just give them the answer, but helping them to come to the answer themselves is more important. So there's also many other lessons we can learn from that. Because of time, we won't go through all of them now, but this is all it is this gives us permission to talk to our children about these issues. Now, how do we discuss this? Firstly, so this is the final thing I want to talk about. If you don't talk to them, who will? So we need to think about, okay, if we're not discussing with them, then who is discussing with them? Is it Google? Is it a teacher at the school? Is it the children's friends? And the thing is, are we confident that the one who's informing them about these issues, about sexual matters, about LGBTQ matters, are discussing with them from the Islamic viewpoint, or is it just from their own viewpoint, from the liberal viewpoint? We also need to give our permission to ask us anything, because our children over time, they get an understanding of things I can talk to my mother and father about, things I can't. We just say to them, look, if you've got any questions about these issues, come to me, ask me anything. Yeah, and you don't have to answer straight away. If our children say, okay, what does this word mean? You say, oh, can I'll come back to you tomorrow, but I'm a bit busy now. Can I come back to you tomorrow about this? But thank you for asking this. It's really important that you come to me asking me about these issues. Can you just give me one day? I just need to do a few things now, and I'll come back to you tomorrow. But always come back when you say you're going to come back, and that gives you enough time then to think about how to answer appropriately. Asking them things like, what do you mean? Like if they ask a question, what do you mean, is really important to get them to be more specific, get clarification on what they're asking. Where did you hear that? So if they ask, for example, what does this word mean? Where did you hear that? Just helps you to understand where their influences are coming from. But obviously say this in a way which is not, where did you hear that? Because that sounds like you are angry. Oh, that's a really good question. Where did you hear that? So that helps you to understand where the influences are coming from. Is it your child's friends? Is it the TV? Is it the internet? Is it the school? That will help you to understand where the influences are coming from. And then you answer them, depending upon their age, you answer them with enough information to satisfy their curiosity. If they're younger children, you give them a very simple answer and say, if you've got any other questions about this or any other thing, always come back to me. So you don't have to give them all the information. If they're 6 years old and they ask you, what is LGBTQ? Give them a very simple answer, but don't have to answer everything. And say, if you've got any other questions, come back to me. Yeah. And then they ask you something, you say, what do you think that means? What do you think that means? Yeah, that gives you an understanding of what they know already, which is really important. And also, what we should do is use realities around us. For example, LGBTQ History Month was last month. Yeah, in schools. Now you can ask them. You can ask, what this flag. Did you hear much about this flag, or what are we teaching about? Have you heard about LGBTQ History Month? Most schools will be discussing this. You can start to, if you see things in the street, if you see things on TV, if you see things around you, you say, what did you think about that? And you use that as a means to start discussions. Yeah. And so it can't just be your children coming to you. You also have got to take discussions to them. Now, I ask this question to people, what does Islam say about homosexuality? And people say it's haram, it's not allowed. But the thing is, I say Islam has nothing to say about homosexuality, because homosexuality is an identity. All of these are identities. They're not real. Yeah. Islam only ever covers things which are real. Yeah. So Islam talks about same-sex relationships are haram. It talks about identifying yourself with a label based upon a sinful act is haram. But these labels are all made up. They come about. I do this activity with young people sometimes, and I come up with a list of identities, LGBTQ identities, and definitions, what they mean. I remember once I did this, I forgot to bring the list of labels and definitions together. So I forgot which ones, because some of them I made up myself, and some of them were just commonly used words. So I asked this question. I said, which ones are made up? Which one of these labels are made up? And they say, oh, maybe that one, that one. I say they're all made up. They're not real. They're things which people have come to use as identities, as labels to describe people that are describing behaviors and attraction, which is changeable. Your attraction to other people, your behavior to other people is changeable. Yeah. And they've changed it into an identity which is not changeable. It's fixed. This is who you are. So they always say, this, I found out who I am. All these years I was living a lie. Now I know who I am. I want to be the true me. I want to be my true self. Because they believe that this is an identity which is fixed. And we said, no, the reality shows it's a behavior which is changeable, which is, you can decide how to respond to it or not. So these are the things that I wanted to say. So yeah, I won't go to any more detail, but what the main thing we want to show children, and we can talk about this another time, is about the fact that these are made up identities. All behavior is changeable. There's no behavior that somebody has which can never change in a person. Everything about a person has the capacity to be changed. And also feelings are temporary. Yeah, the feeling you have when you're a 13-year-old that you think is so strong, that may go after a few weeks or a few months. Don't build your life around a feeling which is temporary. And that's what lots of children are doing. When they say, I feel like I'm not happy being a girl, I want to be a boy, they make that feeling which is temporary become permanent, and that becomes a fixed part of them. And that will pass. That feeling will pass. We're going to find out what is the cause for that feeling and try and work to deal with that cause, because there's no such thing as a person who was born a girl who was born in the wrong body, or born a boy who was born in the wrong body. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. It's a psychological issue. It's a problem that needs to be addressed at a psychological level rather than on a basis of saying that's real. It's not real. And we've got to teach our children that, okay, we disagree with people who identify as LGBTQ, but we have to treat everybody well. And that's the basic, we treat everybody as human beings. And actually what we're going to say to our children is that our objective as Muslims in this society is to give positive da'wah to people who are lost in this society so that they come to Islam. And we want our behavior and the way we approach people to become a da'wah to the whole of society so they can see the beauty, the nobility, the certainty of Islam, and they want to become Muslims. And so therefore we need to encourage our children to treat everybody well, that you can disagree and you can not be happy and not accept the way people live their lives, but you should still treat everybody well. One thing I want to say is, look, on the poster there was a flag. Yeah, on the poster there was a rainbow. Now, the rainbow has 7 colors, and it is a sign from the sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The LGBTQ flag in the beginning used to have 8 colors, and now it has 6 colors. Indigo is not part of the LGBTQ flag, even though it's part of the rainbow. So we should, sometimes we think we should what we call reclaim the rainbow. The rainbow isn't, it's a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a beautiful sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not, doesn't belong to the LGBTQ community, and their rainbow is 6 colors. The rainbow, which is natural, is 7 colors. We need to reclaim that and say there's nothing wrong with the rainbow. The LGBTQ flag is not the rainbow. Yeah, it's different. Yes.
Finish our time.
Okay, that's it. We're finished now. So I just say we instill our foundation in our children, our strength in our children. We need to show our children we love them. Yeah, especially for fathers. We need to create an open environment where they feel comfortable asking you about sex relations to LGBTQ, and we need to ensure our children understand differences between identities which are fixed and made up, and behaviors which are changeable. And we need to recognize say to our children, the very reason why we exist on this earth is to fight our desires, not to give in to them. Yeah, fighting our desires is from the foundation of Islam, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. That's it. That's my final slide anyway. And so inshallah we've got some time for questions. Jazakumullah khairan for your participation.
Jazakallah khairan, Ustad, for your very nice presentation. We have learned a lot of things about these burning topics. And if we summarize today's seminar and your short workshop, we'll find 3 important lessons for us. Now we understood Islamic perspective on how to approach REC and LGBTQ plus from an Islamic viewpoint while living in the Western context. Number two, we need to empower our parents and educators. Then they will confidently address these subjects with our children and students. And number three, we need to support our community to build a network with other parents facing similar challenges. Um, we have received a few questions and concern raised from our attendees today. So I will share with you, and I like you have some input from you as well. So one of the brothers have a question that how can Muslim teachers teach this content and feel they are doing the right things? As you know that in a class, there are many people who identify as different genders. In this situation, how the teacher will feeling that he is doing the right things?
You know, I think it's a very difficult thing. I get questions from Muslim teachers all the time about how do we discuss this, and I think the point is that a lot of Muslim teachers are leaving the profession because they think, I don't want to discuss this, I can't deal with this, it's against my deen. But the problem is that when you leave the profession, a role model for Muslim children and all children is being removed for children. We should not take Muslim teachers out of the profession because this creates more harm than good. You know, as a teacher, if you're being asked to talk about this to children, you can also discuss it in a way which is better than another teacher who will discuss it with their children in a harmful way. Your role as teachers is just like our role as a community in this country is not to, we cannot in any way, we do amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, we enjoin the good and forbid the evil, but we can't enjoin every ma'ruf and force it upon people. We can't remove every munkar and force that upon every people. We don't have the capacity to do that. What we can do is whatever we can. We can do what we can to minimize the harm. So as a teacher, you think about what can I do to minimize the harm to all children in my capacity as a teacher. Yeah. Like, for example, if you were to go to a child who's a girl who wants to be a boy, now you can't say to them, no, you shouldn't be a girl, you shouldn't be a boy. Now that you could get in trouble for that, yeah, and that would not necessarily achieve what you want to achieve. But what you should do is give messages in a general way within the confines of your class, in a way that doesn't target any individual, but helps people to understand what is acceptable and not acceptable. So don't ever force your messages to people, but think about what opportunities do you have to give light to those children who are struggling, and give them some da'wah which is not open like that you get in trouble for, but gives them messages which allow them to stick to the fitrah that human beings already have. Now, also there's also other things that now there's a new guidance that, inshallah, if it comes into being, will help you in a lot of these issues, because it says children should not be encouraged to, if the girl says I want to be a boy, that they should that the school should help them in doing that. There's a lot more safeguards for that. If the new government brings that guidance in, that will help teachers a lot and help safeguard our children as well. But I said, if the primary principle you have in your mind is to minimize the harm, then that's a really important thing that you should think about. How do you do in your context, inshallah.
Jazakallah for your nice answer. Another few question, just I'm going through. Another sister, asked that how we can make sure the school must take it easier for their RSE policy to be available to parents for scrutiny.
So how could you get the RSE policy for school? You need to speak to school. Don't wait for the school to come to you, because that won't happen. Yeah, don't say, look, go to your school. First step, go to your school, download the guidance. It'll be on the website under policies. Download the guidance, look through it, find out when the guidance is going to be reviewed. It will have the date at the top, at the bottom of the front page, and then you look inside the guidance. It will also tell you how often the guidance is
how often the guidance is reviewed, so the policy is reviewed. Then 6 months before the guidance is reviewed, so if the guidance is going to be reviewed in March 2025, then 6 months before that, maybe towards the end of this year, go to the school and say, I understand that the guidance is going to be reviewed in March. I understand that legally you are required to consult parents before it's reviewed. I would like to be a part of that process of review. Yeah, how do I get involved? And then you can engage in a conversation with schools about that, and then look through the policy. And there, we're going to provide some resources for parents to do it like a checklist of what should be in the policy and what questions to ask to ensure that the policy it becomes more meaningful. And just engage with the school about that. Ask to see the resources, and similarly review the policies and give feedback to the school around those. We've written, as I said, I'll send you the link to it. We've written a report, and that goes through policies, RSE policies across the country. You can look at that and see where the weaknesses in policies are, and you can also use that to approach schools and say, I think this policy is missing this, and this. I would like that to be made clearer and to be updated, and then you can then feedback into that policy process, inshallah.
Thank you. Another question is that there is a lack of engagement of the education authorities with the Muslim community. So how can our Muslim community can improve, this engagement with the education authorities?
I think that the answer to that is we shouldn't wait for them to come to us. We should go to them. Find the opportunities to go to them. So it depends what you mean by educational authorities. If it's the school, go to the school. If it's the local authority, our institutions need to start to go to the local authority and speak to them about how they're teaching certain subjects. If it's other authorities like the government, then we need to go to the government. Like this week, as I said, we sent the copy of the report that we produced to 435 MPs 543 MPs in Parliament. In England MPs. We sent the report to all of them with asking them to take our concerns seriously. That if we've said let's wait for them to come to us, they'll never come to us. We need to go to them. So find opportunities in which we can go to the relevant authorities and input into that process. Don't wait for them to come to us. I'll put a link in there to the report. It's really good if people could look at this report, and it gives an idea of the types of problems of RSE in schools and what we can do to try and get our views heard. This will also help you to understand the types of things you are asking changes to be made. So, for example, speak to your local MP. Yeah, there are about 300 new MPs in Parliament. Go and visit your MP and say, look, I've got concerns about RSE in schools. Your MP would have received a report, that we sent to them, and speak to them about this issue and say, look, I've got concerns about the way RSE is happening in schools. I would like you to help us to create change nationally, because we can create change in schools, but we need national change. We need change at the highest level of policy. So I think what we need to do is don't wait for them to come to us, whoever they are. Go take proactive measures to go to them. Inshallah.
Thank you, Jazakallah. This another one, the very last one. One of the parents' concern, he raised a concern. The main concern of Muslim parents is not whether there should be RSE in schools. It is more about the content and unknown risks of the teaching RSE education in this format to young children. Muslim parents believe that the current format of RSE content could spread immorality, which is destructive of respect for human life, family values, and the good of our society. Just you make a very nice comment. Do you say anything about it?
No, that's not a question. So I agree with that.
Comment. He made a comment.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's a fair.
Yeah.
So that's all. This is all the questions we have.
One thing that's really important, yeah, for those of you who want to do more than just, here we have lots of people who want to do more than just act as a parent. This problem is going to affect our community and all children, yeah, not just Muslim children. We don't care just about Muslim children in school. We care about all children, because all children in school need protection, yeah, because all these children they're innocent, they're masoom, they are being affected by this immorality that the previous commenter spoke about. We want change for everyone. So for anyone who wants to be more involved, for the last maybe 1.5 years, we've had this RSE Champions program where we get parents to become trained up with all the information I talked about today, but in more depth, yeah, giving you the tools and knowledge to be able to support other parents in your area. And so we've got about 200 RSE champions across the country, but we need more. We need people to be trained up so that in different areas they can support parents by delivering presentations like this, by answering parents' questions, by giving them guidance and support if issues are happening in schools, by helping parents to discuss this with their children at home. So this program includes 6 different modules around this. So if you are interested in that, please do sign up for the RSE Champions program. The one for England is happening next week. So if you need to apply quickly, otherwise you miss that opportunity. But we really want people to be trained up in different parts of the community, and I'll put the link in if you want to do that. But please don't miss this opportunity. It's not just about us and our children, it's about us and our community and all children. So please do sign up, inshallah ta'ala.
Thank you for the information, Ustad. If you share with us, then inshallah we'll try to share with our brothers and sisters. So Jazakallah khairan.
There's one question there, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
It says, how much does the course cost? Yeah.
Okay.
The course costs a lot of money. No money, but it costs something more valuable than money. It costs your time. Yeah. There's no cost for this. If you sign up for the online course, the course is free. I will send you a workbook which I will not charge you for, even though it costs us money to post it and to print it. We don't charge you one single penny. Yeah, but what we want from you is a commitment to support other people. If you just want to support your own children, this is not for you. But if you want to support other parents in your area and you want to safeguard the morality, the iman of our children across the country, then we will support you for free. Not only will we train you up, but we'll also give you support after you are trained up as well. So please don't worry about the cost. There is no cost, inshallah.
Thank you very much for the valuable information, Ustad. MCA will continue to support parents to respond proactively to what our children taught in their school. We empowered our parents to organizing seminar and giving them training to challenge inappropriate RSE in school and help shape their children's attitude, inshallah. Our dream is to build a community that is proactively focused on raising strong Muslim children within strong Muslim families. We believe that our today's seminar offered a blend of parental advice and activities designed to foster a strong foundation, create a loving home environment, and address LGBTQ+ identities with children. We as a community are well equipped to guide our children through this complex and sensitive issue while upholding our Islamic values. We just wanted to take this opportunity to convey our thanks to all of you who joined today's seminar, and especially thanks to our Ustad Yusuf Patel for giving us his valuable time. We pray you will support us in our future endeavors to protect all children from exposure to inappropriate teaching in schools. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family. Jazakallahu khairan. This is the end of the program. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.